Troy Galloway is a construction manager and consultant, commercial and residential builder, and a certified inspector for all commercial and residential buildings. And now, here is About the House with Troy Galloway.
Welcome back, folks, to About the House. Thank you for joining us. I'm so tickled that you all have an opportunity to sit down with us once more and enjoy an awesome show. About the House, it's about everything possible about your home. We talk about everything. I mean, we talk about which we're going to be visiting with some folks today, masonry. We talk about real estate investing. We talk about mortgages. We talk about construction issues, electrical, everything. And what makes this really super awesome is it's an audio university of learning. So you can always go back to the podcast. You can go to YouTube, all the, Rumble, and you could listen to this show over and over and over again because there's just so much information. You're just not going to get it all in one sitting. And we have lots and lots of shows out there for you to choose from to pick about any kind of subject matter you could possibly ever think of. And maybe even some you've never even thought of. Hey, I forgot. I got to tell you, my name is Troy Galloway. I am your humble host. I am the owner of Galloway Building Services. And my company, yes, we do full types of inspections. We do if you're buying or selling a home. We do that kind of inspections. We are an ASHI certified inspection company. We also do we do commercial building inspections. So if you're buying a building, for commercial use or warehousing or anything like that, we also do construction inspections. Construction inspections, what does that mean? Well, say if you have a problem on a construction job and you don't think it's being done right. Well, if you call another contractor, he's just going to tell you it's not, whether it is or it isn't. Or if you got it so bad now that you're headed into litigation and you need an expert witness, you bring us on board. It's not just that I've been in the business for 44 years, but I work with awesome people that have been in the business for a long, long time. And so if I need to bring in other professional tradesmen and skills that which there's a lot of them out there that I need some more advice, that's what makes us so great, is that we are one stop shopping, whereas that you can have the opportunity to bring in everybody. And that kind of leads us to this awesome company we've had on before, St. Louis Brick and Tuckpointing, and with Jay Nelson and his Uncle Jack. And actually Jay and Tammy was on the show a few years ago, but now they're coming. They was lucky enough to get them to take off their time. I know they're really swamped, so I appreciate you guys' time to join us with us today. But so I want to introduce you guys, and Jay, jump in there. And Jack, I guess you got. We didn't get Tammy with us today, so we don't have the head boss. Is that right? No, that's for Tammy. So when she listens to the show, I've done my due diligence.
Definitely.
But tell us, Jay, a little bit about your company, and Jack, and then introduce your uncle here, and tell us how you guys work together and how you come to be here.
Of course. So I'm Jay Nelson, and I'm a third generation Mason. When I was a kid, 13, 14, my grandpa and my great uncle, they used to have me mixing mortar, and I used to work underneath my Uncle Jack too. And then as I got older, my Uncle Jack really crafted me and taught me a lot when it comes to this masonry field. And, I'm blessed to have him. A lot of the guys that used to work, underneath my grandpa and him and my great uncle, they're still with us today. So I'm super blessed, with the team I got.
That says a lot about a company when they can retain, the workers. I mean, it says a lot about Jack. Now, Jack, what functions of the company that you perform or work in?
Basically, I run my own crew. I'm kind of a job coordinator. I make sure things get done when they need to be done, and put the proper people on each project. I'm 55 years old. I've been doing this just like Jay since I was 12 years old. Carried my first bucket when I was 8 or 9, and we have a pretty good outfit with the crews that we have right now. We have a few crews out there. We're constantly turning these jobs over. We're having to keep the customer satisfied. a lot of times it's a dirty, messy process. There's no way around it. We got to get in there. We got to grind. We got to tear things out. And, it's a really big project sometimes just on cleanup. Cleanup is always half the job. A lot of times when a customer can come out and say, wow, I can't even tell you we're here, then you've done a good job, So, I just always want to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and when, just something as simple as laying down a tarp or grinding out a wall, It's a craft, you've got to be careful with everything you do because you can really, mess some walls up if you don't do them right. The grinding can easily grind into the brick. But really, my role is just to make sure things run smooth and everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And a lot of times if there's something they can't do, then I'll step in and do it, And I do work every day. You can see the blisters on my hands. I do a lot of the brick work, like we tear down fronts of homes and rebuild them, bulges all over the city, chimneys.
Yeah, and bulges. Talk to the folks about bulges, because that is something that I get asked a lot when I'm doing an inspection. What causes that? So why don't you share with the folks?
A lot of times it's just from moisture, water. Once water penetrates a brick, it can cause mold. It can cause wood damage. When wood gets damaged, it swells and starts to push a lot. And in the wintertime, when water gets behind a wall, water freezes, water expands when it freezes, and it will push the brick out. Not every wall is a full masonry wall. Some of them are just a brick veneer, where it's only one course,
One layer up, right? I know, we all know.
It's not really considered a masonry wall. It's just a veneer. Mm-hmm. And then those are normally tied in with a galvanized wall tie to the wooden structure behind it. And a lot of times those wall ties can rot and rust over time, and then the wall just starts to move and bulge out. You see it a lot around windows, above doors, below windows, just because a lot of the movement of the windows going up and down. And in the older areas that we work, the historical areas like Soulard, Lafayette Square, in the Shaw neighborhood, they have those heavy window weights in the windows.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to beat on them to get them up. You've got to beat on them to get them down. So it just creates problems. And, if they're not fixed soon, they start to bulge the wall. So we'll tear out a bulge and relay it right back in.
So I'm seeing a lot of more and more, and I'm sure you do too, where the lintels are all rusted and causing huge stair-stepping issues in our mortar, and where it literally gets in there. But tell the folks about that, and do you replace them very often?
Oh, yeah. We tear lintels out all the time and replace them.
Well, explain to the folks what the lintel is, because we all know here, but on the other side of this microphone, they don't know.
Right. The lintel is a 90-degree piece of steel that runs across the top of two brick columns, so you can keep laying above the opening that you're going to, whether it be a window or a door. The lintel supports the brick above that area. And initially, if you build a brand new home, you dry stack your bricks on the steel lintel. You don't put no mortar on them, and it's designed for moisture to flow through and come out. A lot of times on the older buildings, you'll see a piece of cotton wick sticking out on each end of the lintel. That's designed to suck the moisture out from the inside and drip out through the wall. And over time, that water will rust, make that steel turn into rust, and when steel turns into rust, it expands also, and that's where you get your stair-stepping cracks from. Mm-hmm. Just time, and it's nothing that really anything can be. You can prevent. You can put a vapor barrier in. You can put weep holes and everything, but over time, it's just going to happen because nothing lasts forever. These buildings a lot of them we're working on are right around 100 years old, and if not more.
So that's pretty good, I hope that when I'm 100, I'm just a little rusty.
Yeah.
And that I can still stair-step a little bit. Yeah. Also, too, one of the questions, and then we'll get on to some other things. And Jay, please don't let us, exclude you here. Course. We talk about the cotton or the wick. Then there's a space at the bottom course. Explain to the folks so it's not just me telling them why you guys do that. It's not accidental.
Well, there's a couple reasons. One of them is if you're just doing a brick veneer and you're going to have all the wood behind it, behind the tie vac and your vapor barrier. You leave those open for termite spray and stuff a lot of times. A lot of times you'll see the head joint at the very bottom every 3 or 4 courses, the head joint will be completely out. And if you coordinate with the home builder and the termite inspector, sometimes you'll leave that open for spraying of termites and stuff. And other than that, it would just be for a weep system.
Right.
A weep system.
Well, because I think for the biggest reason I see this you got to have air. Got to have that moisture. Got to have a place for it to escape because of brick being a porous material.
Right, and condensation will build up and it can create stains on the inside of the wall. You're wondering where it's coming from. The roof looks good. The brick looks good. But if you don't have the proper ventilation, then, condensation can build up and start to creep through the wall. That's just like on using a Siloxane waterproofing, a Siloxane. The ideal of that there, bricks have pores just like our skin, and they're supposed to be able to breathe. There's proper silicone that you use, or spray, waterproofing. Actually, silicone's not really recommended. A Siloxane is.
Oh, and good point. Thank you for sharing that.
Just like on paint, you don't really want to paint a brick, but there is a paint called silicate that will supposedly designed to allow your bricks to breathe. And then the Siloxane, it will keep the outside dry, but it will allow the inside for the moisture to escape through a chimney or a vent or in between walls.
Of course, there is certain bricks too that you don't want to waterproof. Depending on what brick. Not all bricks are made the same. And some of them. If you do waterproof or even possibly, with the paint, it'll just make it erode a lot faster. Definitely in Soulard, we see a lot of them orange bricks. Yeah. And, they just weren't designed to be an outside brick, but they are out there. And, when we look at them type of jobs and we see that they're eroded real bad, a lot of times we'll see because somebody waterproof didn't cause more damage, So.
Well, how would you know? I mean, for just say me, I'm walking out there, and how would I be able to tell this brick can be waterproof, this brick cannot?
If it's really a soft brick, you probably don't want to waterproof it. If it's a hard brick, then it's okay.
Tell me how I can tell a soft brick from a hard brick.
Well, for one thing, you'll see spalling on the face of the brick will just look a little bit rougher than all the rest, and some of it will even look like it's been sanded with paper, and some of the faces might actually have fallen off.
Yeah, and usually the ones that we're discussing right now, particular, you would almost be able to take any metal object and rub real hard, and if that damages the brick, it's way too soft to waterproof.
Something as easy as a key, just scrape a key across it, and they had the big fire in Chicago in the early 1900s, a great fire, where the cow knocked over the lantern.
Right.
Well, anyway, they brought all them bricks to St. Louis. And in St. Louis, there is a large brick community of old Chicagos.
I did not know that. That's
great.
And
those have actually been super baked in that fire. That's why a lot of times, no matter where you go, Chesterfield, City, Soulard, North County, you'll see a brick home, and every once in a while you'll see one that's just black, a brick, just as black as can be, like it was flashed.
Yeah.
And if you go up there and look at that black brick real close, you can actually see that it's either a tar that melted to the brick or it's just a burnt stain. And that's, they actually brought millions of bricks from Chicago to St. Louis and built St. Louis with the used bricks.
Wow.
From Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I was having a fella telling me about the St. Louis in particular, because he was a historian, and he was talking about the brick, and he said that we had the St. Louis city had a huge fire, and that they mandated for several years to have the homes of brick. Have you heard that story before?
I have not.
And that's what he said created this was a brick capital. Yeah. So and they had that masons like yourself out of St. Louis and this Midwest were well desired throughout the whole country. If you knew how to do it here, then you could go anywhere to get a job.
Yeah. It's still like that, and I hear that from a lot of people, Not that I'm
That's pretty cool.
Traveler
yeah, definitely.
But I've been to a lot of places in the United States and where I have heard that. Oh, you're from St. Louis and you're a Mason, huh?
Now, let's not get that mixed up with Freemason. This is a stone brick masonry.
Of course.
You can be both, but if you're a Freemason, that don't mean you know how to lay a brick.
That's right.
Well, of course, the old joke. Now, I grew up in a generation, the New York apples were nothing. You ever heard them expression?
Of course.
Yeah, they were bricks.
Yeah.
City boys know.
Yeah.
Jay knows.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's so bad. Okay, I got way sidetracked. So, you talk about them weep holes at the bottom of them brick. I did a new construction inspection a few years ago, and they literally had them weep holes 3 to 4 feet under the ground. Literally. And the reason is that, of course, the studs are behind there because now that had the foundation that had the brick ledge. A lot of our foundations folks out there, they don't have that set, like a seat for the brick. They just lay the brick right on top of the foundation. So this one wasn't like that. But nevertheless, and that custom builder out west of here, without getting myself in trouble, literally told the homeowners that was absolutely fine. That I made that up, that I was just making up. But I showed him the documentation. But I wish I would have, at that time, I didn't know you folks, or I would have sent you out there. And I don't know who
verify what you're seeing, at least.
There's not very many really great. There's not, like your company, and there's a couple of others, but there's just not many good brick masons out there anymore.
No, it's a shame, but it's definitely the truth. I would say 10-15% of our work is probably redoing other people's bad work, wouldn't you say, Jake?
Well, I have to say that I've sent you guys several, and they're brand new. These guys just did the work. Can't get into names here on the radio, but
yeah, and it might be even a little more than
it's horrible, So here's one of the things I want you to talk to the folks about this, if you would, please. And then we'll go up to what we was talking about chimneys and stuff. But I wanted to share this because tuck pointers. I learned this from the tuck pointing con men. And they actually laughed about it. They was up out of Louisiana, and some good old Cajun boys, and they was good old boys. But how they was beating everybody's price. And so I was working with them. They showed me how they tuck pointed. So they just lightly drug out the mortar out between the brick and then overlaid it. And then, of course, you could just, if you take you starts, gets a little bit of moisture, that pops right off. But tell the folks a little bit about tuck pointing, how deep you go, why you go, and what the process.
Yeah, we see that a lot. We call it skimming, and it's
skimming, all right.
It's a faux pas in tuck pointing.
It's what?
A faux pas. It's a no-no.
Oh.
You don't do that. You get fired or you get caught skimming. In St. Louis, a half-inch will meet specs on certain jobs, and depends on how wide the brick is, the gap. If it's a butter joint or a squeeze joint, you only want to go 2.5 times the width of the joint if it's a little tiny butter joint.
2.5 times. Yeah. That's a good point. Okay, great.
And then standard, like I said, a half-inch deep meets specs. 3/4 inch is recommended for any type of type in mortar, because you want to always use a softer mortar than the brick, because you can take away from the integrity of the brick the next time the next guy comes and grinds, and he's going to zip off into some hard mortar. You don't do that. If you're laying the stone, then you might want to use a type M mortar, which is the hardest strength mortar there is, roughly, I believe, 3,000 PSI. And that's just so the mortar will last as long as it's stone. Mm-hmm, When they use a type N mortar, it's designed that they know that eventually that's going to have to be tuck pointed again. There's no doubt about it. If you go down to Cultural Resources downtown St. Louis, get a historical permit for tuck pointing, that's what you have to do. You have to meet all standards to a type N mortar, half-inch minimum, 3/4 recommended. If it's a small squeeze joint butterfront, you'll see it a lot on the front of a home. The joints will be real small. Then on the side, they're bigger. Mm-hmm. They do that just for a fancy embellishment. That's all it is. And that's when you only want to go 2.5 times the width of the joint. And I'm talking some of them are sometimes only a 1/16 of an inch, the head joint. That's the end of the brick, is the head of the brick. So the vertical joints on the end of a brick, that's called a head joint. And then the horizontal joints are a bed joint,
Yeah, it's definitely a shame, because we see it all the time. And, customers, they wondered why, they got their building fully tuck pointed, 6 months ago or a year ago, 2 years ago, and there's hairline cracks everywhere. Well, if you don't grind it out, it's just not going to last, And when they see that the mortar joint's just popping out and you can actually see, that it's skimmed and the old mortar's behind it, it's just, it's a shame, but we see it all the time, we really do. And of course they can charge, whatever price they want, because putting it in is going to be faster than taking it out. And, it's maybe 20% of the job, so.
Well, and they got them tail light warranties.
Yeah, of course.
As soon as the tail lights are, you guys know what them are, but as soon as the tail lights are gone, the warranty goes with it.
Of course.
You try to find me if you can. And that's why I think it's great to, very important, folks, that you get a company that's been established 3 generations. You can't hardly get more established than that.
Of course.
Plus, his father still comes around to the job every once in a while and keeps everybody on their toes.
Yeah,
definitely.
He's
retired, basically. It's Jeremy's company. But Ronnie, which is his father, does come around still. And, no one likes to see him pull up because they know that they're sitting down, just even if they only sit down for 1 minute, they're back up. He's the stickler.
Uh-huh.
And Jeremy's mother is, to me, the backbone of the company. Because of her networking with people on the computer and her home advisor groups and stuff like that, she has kept the work coming in and pouring.
Oh yeah, she's been amazing. She actually went to school for blueprints. And but she grew up in the trade too. She remembers going with my grandpa to the job site. So it's definitely in her blood too, and she loves this field.
Yes, and what I admire about your mother is that in my world. I say this with honor and respect. She's a tough old gal. She stands strong, and the guys and the people don't give her no guff.
That's right.
That's kind of how my wife is too. My wife grew up. Her father was a contractor. She's always been with me into contracting, and you don't want to make them mad.
Yeah, but you know what? They really know she's a pussycat. She really is. Her bark is way more only because she has such a big heart.
Yeah, of course.
She loves everybody.
Yeah, well, that's
so
awesome.
Don't let anything fool you about her. She's a really great person, honestly.
Let's go up to the chimneys because, you were talking about the older buildings. And, a lot of our older buildings all have the old masonry chimneys. And we see some of these chimneys leaning. And so I always call them if I feel like they got a certain degree of lean. But I want to talk to the professionals. How much do you feel, or is there a standard that a chimney can be leaning? How does that work?
It's just a matter of time before it goes over. There's nothing you're going to be able to do to stop it from falling.
So what embraces aren't really just
well, I've been up on many roofs where it'll have a brace on the back of it, the steel rod that goes from the roof to the back of the chimney, and just touch it and it fall right off. Mm-hmm. Just over time, again, just rusted right through. If it's done right, yes, it's a good method.
Is there like a standard that we could use as say if I'm inspecting it and I get a question how much? I always just use physics, but I'm not a mason. I'm a Freemason, but I'm not a brick mason, stone mason. Is it like 1 inch per foot, lean, half inch? Do you got a standard that you look at, or do you just say, hey, if it's leaning, it needs replaced?
Yeah, just something is going up there and seeing if you can shake it just by your hand.
Ooh, that's scary.
Oh yeah,
if you can shake it by your hand, I don't care if it's leaning or not.
All the time you can do that. There's realistically, it's how extensive the homeowner wants to get. What can they afford to do at that time? Mm-hmm. Look, your chimney's leaning. It's about ready to fall over. It's just a matter of time. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I really can't afford to get it rebuilt right now.
Well, yeah.
So it really depends on what the homeowner wants at that time. And because it's obvious that if it's leaning, it's just a matter of time before it falls.
So if it's leaning, if it's a leaner, it needs attention.
Yeah.
Period. Yes, would you say that?
Of course.
Yes.
What causes them to lean? Is there a reason? We'd understand why we're getting the bows in our wall, but
there's all kinds of reasons. Something as simple as a bus going by can shake and vibrate your chimney.
Good.
Lightning. We have done many chimneys that have been just struck by lightning and blown to pieces.
I never thought of that.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe it. A lot of them, and then again, water.
Yeah, just neglect over time. Letting water seep in there. Or when the mortar joints are open or all cracked up, water gets in there in the wintertime. It freezes, and expands, and that's what you end up with.
So when we go up there for the folks, so we're going up our chimney and we're talking about more water getting into it. We got our crown, or, our cement crown. Talk to the folks about the importance of that, how to best repair them, or should we just replace them?
It's definitely better to replace them. You want 2 inches thick at the brick, up to 4 inches at the fluid is a standard meets code crown, concrete. You don't want to use mortar with glue or anything, a straight concrete mix. A lot of times we'll run rebar across because you'll have your tiles that come up and then everything around them is open. So you just can't pour concrete and make it levitate. We'll run rebar across and then we'll get metal lath and lay that on top of the rebar, wire it all together, pour a concrete crown on top of that, and as long as you get a good bond with the clay tiles, a lot of times you may have to come back and let it set up because it will shrink a little bit. And then we put a polyurethane bead around that. Sometimes you'll see a stone or a marble or terracotta at the top of some chimneys, and your crown's not going to necessarily stick to that surface because it may have an acrylic on it or something like that. And then we come back with a polyurethane to take care of any small areas,
Yeah, because you just you just said how to do that, and I tell you what, I've watched these guys put these crowns on all the time, and I mean they just patch it. What I see a lot is that they'll just, if I call them that these crowns got to be repaired, they just caulk the cracks.
That's definitely a Band-Aid. I would say that if you're using the right caulk and it is just like a hairline crack, that will give you, best case scenario, maybe 3 years or something. But, it's just a Band-Aid. And sometimes, like we were discussing earlier, sometimes they just don't have the money to get it done right. A lot of people don't understand them concrete caps. That's a serious process, if you're doing it right. If you're not doing it right and you just go up there and throw up mortar, then, I guess anybody could probably throw mortar up there and try to pan it out, which we see companies do. But if you're doing it the right way, it's a process. There's nothing easy about it.
There's a chance you may loosen up the top course of brick, tearing off the old one.
Right.
And there is a couple resurfacing products that we do use that we would recommend. Because just like Jay said, it depends on how expensive the homeowner can get. Because the crowns can be costly. It's not just a little going up there with a bucket of mortar and that's it, A lot of times you have to set scaffold up. You have to get up there. You have to tear that crown off. There's a chance that you're going to lose a course or two, or at least 1 or 2 bricks below it. You may lose a face of a brick, And,
you normally do when it comes to tearing off the caps,
And then normally a good-sized chimney may have 500, 600, 700 pounds of concrete on top of it once it's all done,
Yeah, I think about that too. How you guys get them knocked off there without causing more of a problem. But I also just can't. I mean, some of the fixes, they're not even fixes.
No, definitely not. Yeah. We see it all the time. We've seen from mortar, which obviously mortar is not made to be a cap. When mortar dries and cures out, it expands. So if and see what these customers might not know, or even the bad companies that are doing it, they might not even realize how much damage they're doing, because unless they go back and get up there and look at it in a couple of weeks, they might think it looks good, but that's the difference from having an expert do it and somebody that just, ain't been doing it that long. And yeah, it's a shame, but not even just mortar. We've seen tar too, We've seen almost every product.
Tar.
You can
of all places, my fire's coming up out of,
Of course.
I'm thinking, well, we got another reason there's a fire up there now. So, well, hey, now I got a question for you guys. And it used to be an old tuck pointer was using this product for patching, just for spot tuck pointing, light tuck pointing. He swore by it. Now he's retired, went fishing, and so he's long gone. But he was using this stuff that's like you buy it in a caulking tube, and like at Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's a mortar. And he said he liked it because it was expandable and waterproof. Have you got any experience with anything like this?
Yeah, we've all used what we've had to at the time to do a certain project. A lot of times if you're way up in the air and you have a crack that needs to be filled with mortar or something, then that tube is, comes in handy.
So it's really not junk material. It can be used.
Yeah, it can be used. And, but it goes back to what I say about the mortar too. That stuff in the tube always gets hard, really hard. And, it makes it rough for the next guy when he comes to grind.
Or depending on, I guess depending on, what kind of brick it is, or, it probably wouldn't be ideal to use that stuff for every project, which, of course we don't use it, but, we have seen it done,
Yeah, I've seen. He said he liked it, but maybe but he's no longer in business, so he's not. I don't know if that product was around long enough while he was in business to. But now here's a story that you kind of hit on this a little bit earlier. But that old brick mason back when I was a young man told me that we should always seal our brick. Now you told me some brick you can't really do that with, and explain that. So that's awesome. But he said if you keep your home sealed, that brick sealed, you'll never have to do any tuck pointing ever. Is that true? Now he swore by it. But his day there wasn't no such thing as actually sealing until he was closer to retirement.
You know what they used to put on back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s?
Diesel fuel?
Yeah.
We used to use that on cedar siding too.
Yeah.
Really worked great.
When I first started doing this kind of work, I worked with gentlemen that were already in their 50s and 60s, and and I'm talking 1980. So they were from that era, and they taught me a lot of the old tricks and stuff. But yeah.
Well, we use that. Now I'm switching gears a little bit. Brick is siding, so okay. But anyway, we used to use that on old cedar siding, and we had a home down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and then we did this and sealed it, and we told them, you got to wait a week before you do any barbecue. Well, you out there barbecuing the next day or that same day. I don't recall. It's been so many years.
Of course.
And he burned his house down. He wanted to sue us.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we never used it again. But since then, we've had a lot of other products come out. But does that help then with mortar? Tuck pointing if you keep your home sealed?
Depending on the job, depending on what type of brick it is, it definitely could give you an extra years. But as far as never having to touch it again, that's definitely not the case. That's definitely false.
That makes sense. There's no such thing as definite. Now, I want you to please help some of the folks that are listening to the show here, because I think that sometimes when I talk about this, they get mixed up from acid washing and sealing. I know in your world, you're just smiling thinking, well, what the world? These are two different animals. But explain to the folks when and why we do acid washing versus sealing, the difference.
Yeah. So sometimes, when it comes to acid washing, that's actually just cleaning up the haze from the mortar. There's really nothing you can do about it. To actually do the job right, you have to brush your masonry work. And when you do it, you're going to get some haze, no matter what. It might be, there's a difference now between haze and actually getting mortar smeared all over the brick.
Yeah.
Acid's not meant for that. But the haze, that's what acid's for. You just, it cleans up the work afterwards. Mm-hmm. And obviously waterproofing is to actually seal the brick, completely. So yeah, it's definitely two different animals.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you explained that. I try to tell them that too, but you're the mason. So, that's now I can say, hey, just listen to the show.
Of course.
Learn more about it. Well, now you guys do a lot of exterior. Do you do a lot of tuck pointing? Do you do much interior work? Or are you doing seeing more and more of that now?
Of course.
Now, is there a difference in application from exterior to interior when you're doing your brick?
You can't grind on the inside, obviously. So we use a chip and hammer to get the mortar out between the brick as we would versus exterior grinding, you know. But as far as the application, it's pretty much the same. A lot of times the walls may be somewhat drier on the inside, and we'll wet them down, you know, apply water to them and just kind of moisten them up a little bit for our mortar to stick, you know. A lot of times that's what you'll see on the inside. Just the walls are so much drier on the inside than they are on the outside. And then sometimes you get the opposite, you know, where they may be wet, holding a lot of moisture too, you know.
More and more people are putting this, I don't know if you could I don't know that I could honestly call it a fake brick, but it's like a brick veneer that hangs on sheets, you know. Does this have any kind of longevity at all? I mean, they sell it like it's real brick, but
actually, like if you go to a city like Los Angeles where they have earthquakes, that's what they use, and they'll even grout it after they apply the 4x8 sheets. It's just like an old sheet of paneling. You know, it's got the brick that stick out roughly a half inch. It's just a brick veneer. And then they'll mortar it, you know, they'll grout it. A lot of times they'll use a grout bag when they do that instead of a joiner, which we use to tuck point, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that would, you know, have, you know, I personally don't know much about the product, but.
The new stadium downtown has that on it too, a lot of that on it. And
really?
Yeah, so it will last a while.
Yeah, well, and it would make sense for movement. But it definitely is not a masonry home.
Of course not.
I mean, that's a brick veneer side. That ain't. Well, I guess it's still a brick veneer, but I'd call it brick siding.
Yeah, I would consider probably brick siding myself.
I don't know that I'd call it, but that's my opinion. That's only an opinion. Right. I'm not out in California. I don't.
Well, they do that because of the earthquakes. You know?
No, that would make sense. You know, you don't want to build a brick home where there's earthquakes all the time.
No, I wouldn't want to build a home. I'll be quiet now. And
we just did a inside of a fireplace with briquettes, which is just basically the face of a brick. You know, you buy them already pre-cut.
Kind of like the OZ brick?
Exactly.
Really? So they still sell that? So tell the folks about that, because a lot of folks, I mean, I'm talking about a generation or something. I think a lot of folks have never heard of that before.
Yeah, Z-brick. That's just where they basically are the brick veneer, roughly 3/4 to 5/8 of an inch thick. And it's just basically you stick them on there. You know, you have different processes. Some people use an adhesive. We like to put up a metal lathe and then put a scratch coat over that and then stick the stone on using a Type S mortar, you know, which has a higher...
the Type S, because we was talking about Type M for tuck pointing. But
no, Type N for tuck pointing. Right. Unless you're doing stone, then it's M.
Okay.
Yeah.
N, and then stone is M?
Yes. Okay. That's if you're laying stone.
Okay.
And yeah.
N as in now, M as in man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And then the sand is just the size of the aggregate. Like when we're tuck pointing, we want a sugar sand. It's got a smaller aggregate. If you're laying brick, then you want a larger aggregate. You know, it doesn't have to be as fine. And you can still use have the same Type N mortar with just a different aggregate, and it'd still be a Type N. You know, in St. Louis, common is sugar sand, fine Merrimack, Missouri sugar, and then just straight river sand is probably the roughest sand you'll find in St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't know. I do want to hit on this a little bit. You know, sometimes customers will, you know, tuck point with the river sand. And when they brush it, you know, the aggregate, you know, will fall out a little bit and it'll look real rough. And that's why, you know, obviously we don't tuck point with that stuff. But I have been to multiple projects where a customer's like, why does it look like that? And it's because they use that type of mortar. It don't necessarily mean that the mortar's bad because it's rough. But, you know, we do see that a lot too, just from not using the right mortar.
Yeah, I've seen that too, but I knew that it was aggregate, but I didn't realize it was the river sand that was the reason. And unless I see it popping, I don't say nothing about it, Yeah. But we do see a lot of that, man. It's amazing.
It basically becomes like an exposed aggregate sidewalk. Eventually, the top layer of the cement wears off, and you can see the sand behind it.
That's a good analogy.
Of course, yeah, definitely is.
In the same way as when you acid wash. If you can be really a neat tuck pointer and not have to acid wash your work's going to last a lot longer than if you acid wash it. As soon as you put acid on that wall, you're eating off a layer or two of that outside fine concrete. That matter of fact, that's about the only thing it will eat. It comes in a plastic container, but it eat concrete away. I'm not a scientist. I can't figure that one out. But
of course,
yeah, it does.
So an ex-girlfriend, you don't want her to have this because she could write love letters on your car with it, couldn't she?
Yeah, it will eat through metal. We've had a container that was dripping. We didn't know it, and it was dripping right on a metal walkboard and just dripped right on through. Yeah. If you just spill it and wipe it up real fast and wash it off, you're good. Nothing will happen.
Well, that's a show by itself, the acid washing. Because it sounds to me like you could have some environmental issues if not done correctly.
They actually have a green muriatic acid now.
A green?
They sure do. They sell it as simple as Lowe's and Home Depot. Comes in a green container. It's muriatic acid.
That's good for the environment.
Well, it's supposed to be better. You can use it indoors.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us today. And tell the folks how they can find more about you and how they can find your company and phone numbers and emails and or any information they could do to help find you.
Yeah, they can always give us a call at 314-753-2907. We get free estimates. You can look us up under STL Brick and Tuckpointing on Facebook, Google. You can look me personally up, Jay Nelson, on Facebook. We're real easy to find. All you got to do is Google us.
Great. Now, give your phone number one more time, just a little bit slower, because people are trying to write it down.
Of course. 314-753-2907.
Well, folks, and I highly recommend them. Actually, these are the only... there's other great masons out there, but these are the only company that I highly recommend. And the reason is because of the quality. In my world is number one, and they have best of quality. Number two is because they're very fair on their pricing. I see these other masons company, tuck pointing and masonry companies. They're great companies, but they charge more than you do. So, you're very fair. And we know Tammy.
Yeah, no, my I am blessed. My entire family are 100% behind everything I do, and I was blessed to actually grow up in this field, and my entire family growing up in this field also, it was a blessing, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, I'm very thankful for you and Jack for coming up here today, and we'll have to do it again in a couple of years. It was a great show that you did a couple of years. So, folks, now that we got two of these shows out here that they've done, and we've talked about different things on each show, so they can actually get more content and learn more about you. So, thanks for joining us, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, yeah, and hey, if you guys ever need an inspection, or give us a call, construction inspection or litigation work, and we're the only company that I know of in the Midwest that is actually certified construction experts in the state of Missouri, and shortly to be certified in the state of Illinois. So, hey, give us a holler. And that's why I recommend these folks, because I know I don't have to look at their work. It's good. Thanks, guys.
Of course. Thank you.
Sponsored by Troy Galloway and Galloway Building Services, your top choice for professional home inspections in the St. Louis area. GallowayBuildingServices.com.